How your parents' age at death affects yours. They say time is a thief. But what if it's not just time? What if it's inheritance? Imagine this. Your mother passed at 61, your father at 66. You've never really thought much about it until now. You catch yourself calculating quietly in the middle of the night. How many years do I have left? It's a question most of us avoid. But deep down we wonder, did we inherit more than just our eye color or laugh? Did we inherit their countdown? Scientists have spent decades uncovering the hidden blueprint of human longevity. And the truth is, your parents' age at death may be more revealing than you ever imagined. Not as a prophecy, but as a warning or a gift. Because woven into your DNA is a silent record of their lives and their deaths. And today, we're going to unlock it. This isn't just a story about genetics. It's about your future, your health, your habits, and the silent clues your parents left behind. Backed by cutting-edge research, we'll reveal how their age at death may influence yours, and what you can do to rewrite your own ending. The genetic blueprint, what you inherit from your parents. Your story didn't begin with you. Long before your first breath, your future was already being shaped. Inside cells, coded in strands of DNA passed from your parents. This invisible blueprint holds instructions not just for your height or eye color, but for how you age, how your body fights disease, even how long your heart might keep beating. Researchers from King's College London and the University of Exeter discovered that about 20 to 30% of human lifespan is determined by genetics. That may not sound like much, but it's enough to tilt the scales. You may carry protective variants of certain genes that slow cellular aging, improve cholesterol metabolism, or boost DNA repair. If your parents lived long, healthy lives, those same molecular advantages may live in you. But it works both ways. The same blueprint can carry inherited risks. Genes that increase inflammation, weaken immunity, or raise your chance of heart disease and cancer. And the effect isn't random. Scientists found that children of long-lived parents tend to have lower incidence of multiple age-related diseases and better biological markers of aging, like stable blood pressure, healthy glucose levels, and stronger heart rhythms. In other words, your genes don't just whisper your history, they hint at your future. But this is only one part of the puzzle. Because while genes may set the stage, there are some families where the script seems to defy expectation, where one generation reaches 90 and the next struggles to make 70. Why does that happen? To answer that, we need to look at those who beat the odds and ask what happens when longevity becomes a legacy. The longevity legacy, living past 90, might run in the family, continuing seamlessly from the previous section. In families where age feels almost mythical, where grandparents quietly cross the 90-year mark and keep going, scientists have found something extraordinary. They call it familial exceptional longevity, and it's not just a matter of luck. A groundbreaking study published in the Journal of Gerontology followed thousands of people whose parents lived into their 90s. The findings? These children were far more likely to live longer themselves, with drastically lower risks of heart disease, stroke, diabetes, and certain cancers. It wasn't just one disease or one gene. It was a whole-body resilience, passed down like an invisible heirloom. In these families, researchers found a slower rate of biological aging. Their telomeres, the protective caps at the ends of chromosomes, were longer. Their inflammation markers were lower, and their metabolism stayed healthier deep into old age. But perhaps most fascinating was this. Even when accounting for lifestyle choices like smoking, diet, or exercise, the children of long-lived parents still had a measurable survival advantage. It's as if the body remembers how to last because it's done it before. And this longevity legacy doesn't just appear in the lab. It shows up in quiet details. A mother who kept walking every morning into her 90s. A father whose blood pressure barely budged over decades. An uncle who never took medication and still shoveled snow at 88. Yet as strong as this inheritance may be, it's not a guarantee. Because there's another side to this story. Families where longevity doesn't pass down, where a parent dies early and the children wonder if they're next. What does that say about their future? To find out, we need to look at what early parental death really means and what it may be trying to tell us. Early death in a parent, a warning sign for your own risk. There's a different kind of silence in a home touched by early loss. When a parent dies young, before 60, sometimes even before 50, it doesn't just leave emotional wounds. It leaves questions. Quiet, haunting ones. Will that be me? Is that how my story ends too? Science says. It might be a warning worth listening to. According to the Framingham Heart Study, one of the longest and most respected health studies in the world, people whose parents died early have a higher risk of dying early themselves, especially from cardiovascular disease and cancer. The numbers don't lie. If your father passed before 60 from heart disease, your own risk can be nearly double. Why? Because early death often points to genetic vulnerabilities, undetected issues with cholesterol regulation, blood pressure control, or even how your cells handle oxidative stress. These aren't things you feel every day. They're silent risks hiding until it's too late. But it's not just about the genes. Families often share habits, diets, even stress patterns. An early death may reflect both inherited biology and a shared environment that feeds disease, poor sleep, emotional suppression, lack of preventive care. The loss of a parent young doesn't doom you, but it should alert you. It's not a sentence. It's a signal, a reminder to get proactive, to ask hard questions, to break the cycle. Because even if the blueprint is flawed, and even if the past feels heavy, your choices can still rewrite the next chapter. And that brings us to the real question. How much power do you actually have to outlive your parents? Let's look at what science says about personal choice, and why it might matter more than anything you inherited. What you don't inherit, lifestyle still overrides genetics. If your DNA feels like a sealed fate, here's the truth science wants you to hear. It's not. In a landmark study published in Nature Genetics, researchers analyzed the health data of over 500,000 people. Their conclusion? Lifestyle choices can override even strong genetic risk factors. In other words, even if you inherited a loaded gun, you still choose whether to pull the trigger. A person with a high genetic risk of heart disease who eats clean, stays active, avoids smoking, and manages stress can cut their risk by more than 50%. That's not speculation, it's data. Another study by Harvard's T.H. Chan School of Public Health tracked people over decades and found that those who followed 5 simple habits, a healthy diet, regular exercise, no smoking, moderate alcohol, and a healthy weight, lived up to 14 years longer, even if their parents died young. Your genes are a foundation, not a destiny. They may light a fire, but your daily decisions either feed it or smother it. And science now understands why. Positive lifestyle changes literally affect gene expression, a field called epigenetics. You can switch off harmful genes and switch on protective ones based on how you live. That means every salad, every walk, every hour of sleep is more than just healthy. It's an act of rebellion against inherited risk, a statement that you are more than your history. But while lifestyle can shield you from many dangers, some patterns still echo down family lines in deeply specific ways, especially when it comes to how and when your parents died. To see this more clearly, let's look at the separate, measurable impacts of your father's age of death and your mother's. Father's age of death and your heart health. There's a rhythm passed from father to child that isn't always visible, but it pulses beneath the surface. Researchers in the British Medical Journal uncovered something striking. Men whose fathers died young from heart disease had significantly higher risks of developing the same condition, even if they lived healthier lives. The connection wasn't just anecdotal. Even after adjusting for smoking, diet, and exercise, the risk remained. Why? Because many cardiovascular vulnerabilities like high LDL cholesterol, blood pressure sensitivity, and plaque buildup are heavily influenced by inherited male-specific genetic patterns. This is especially true with Y chromosome-linked markers, which are only passed from father to son. Scientists have found that certain Y chromosome variants directly increase the risk of heart inflammation and coronary artery disease. It's a genetic fingerprint that shapes how your heart responds to pressure, stress, and time. But it's not all biology. Fathers often shape the behaviors that influence long-term heart health, how we handle anger, how often we move, how we eat, and how we respond to pain. So if your father passed away early due to heart disease, you may have inherited both the risk and the roadmap. It doesn't mean you're doomed, but it does mean you're marked, and that knowledge is power. Knowing your father's health history could be the difference between catching a silent condition early or too late. But the story doesn't end with the father's legacy. Because mothers pass on something just as powerful, something that may not affect your heart, but could shape how long your mind stays sharp. Let's explore the impact of maternal longevity, especially when it comes to memory, cognition, and the aging brain. Mother's age of death and cognitive decline. Your mother gave you more than life. She may have also handed you the keys to how your mind ages. In a study published in Neurology, researchers found that individuals, especially daughters, whose mothers died young, were more likely to experience early cognitive decline, including memory loss, reduced processing speed, and even Alzheimer's disease. The science behind this connection runs deeper than genetics alone. Mothers pass down mitochondrial DNA, a unique form of DNA responsible for energy production in cells, including brain cells. And here's the catch: mitochondrial DNA only comes from the mother, not the father. If her mitochondria were vulnerable to stress, inflammation, or neurodegeneration, you may carry those same vulnerabilities. Over time, those small defects can add up, slowing brain repair, weakening neural communication, and accelerating mental aging. But it's not just the biology. Emotional patterns are passed down too. Many people with early maternal loss report higher levels of unresolved grief, anxiety, and chronic stress, factors that, over time, can alter the brain's structure, shrink the hippocampus, and impair memory. If your mother experienced dementia, depression, or passed away at a younger age, it's more than memory. It's a map, a clue pointing to what you need to protect most. But this isn't a sentence carved in stone. In fact, researchers are discovering that the brain's plasticity, its ability to grow and adapt, can be nurtured for decades, even in those with high genetic risk. The key is awareness, early action, and living in a way that supports your mental resilience. Still, longevity isn't just shaped by cognition or cardiovascular health. There's something even more fundamental happening on the cellular level, something passed down from both parents. To see it clearly, we have to look at the ticking clock inside every cell, your telomeres. Telomere length, the cellular clock you inherit. Inside every cell in your body is a timer. It doesn't tick and it doesn't chime, but it shortens slowly, silently, with every passing year. It's called a telomere, and it may be one of the most powerful predictors of how long you'll live. Telomeres are the protective caps at the ends of your chromosomes. Think of them like the plastic tips on shoelaces, preventing your DNA from unraveling or sticking together. Every time a cell divides, those telomeres shrink just a little. And when they become too short, the cell stops functioning or dies. In 2009, Nobel Prize-winning research revealed just how critical telomeres are to aging, disease, and longevity. But here's what matters most for you. Telomere length is partially inherited. A study published in PNAS found that people with long-lived parents often had significantly longer telomeres than those whose parents died young. That means their cells could keep dividing, healing, and regenerating for longer, slowing the visible and invisible signs of aging. It's not just about lifespan. Longer telomeres are associated with lower risks of heart disease, diabetes, cognitive decline, and even cancer. But it's not fixed at birth. Lifestyle plays a major role. Chronic stress, poor diet, and smoking can accelerate telomere shortening, while meditation, exercise, and certain foods may help preserve them. In this way, your telomeres tell a story that's both inherited and earned, a fusion of family history and daily choices. Still, not all damage is genetic or even cellular. Some of it starts when we lose someone too soon and carry the emotional weight for years. To understand that impact, we must go beyond biology and look at something far more human: grief. Psychological impact, how grief and stress from parental loss ages you. Not all inheritance is physical. Sometimes, the heaviest thing we carry is grief, especially when it comes too soon, too suddenly, or without answers. The loss of a parent at any age is profound, but when it happens early in life, the emotional impact doesn't just live in the heart. It etches itself into the body. Studies in psychoneuroendocrinology and other journals reveal a powerful truth. Chronic, unresolved grief, especially from parental loss, can accelerate biological aging. How? Through a cascade of stress hormones, particularly cortisol. When grief is prolonged or unprocessed, cortisol levels stay elevated. Over time, this constant stress state damages immune function, inflames tissues, and even shortens telomeres, those same cellular clocks tied to longevity. It's not just chemical. Long-term grief can reshape the brain. It affects the hippocampus, critical for memory, and the prefrontal cortex, which helps with decision-making and emotional regulation. This is why some people feel foggy for months, even years after a major loss. Their bodies are processing trauma on a cellular level, and yet many never speak of it. They move on, they stay busy, they bury the sadness, but the body remembers. The good news? Healing is possible. Therapy, social connection, mindfulness, and meaning-making practices have all been shown to reduce the physiological toll of grief. In doing so, they may not only mend the heart, but extend the years ahead. Because longevity isn't just about genes or cells. It's about the stories we carry, the pain we face, and the resilience we build. But there's one more clue we often overlook, hidden not just in parents, but in the people who walk the path beside us, our brothers and sisters. Let's explore what your siblings can reveal about your own longevity. Siblings count too. Shared genetics, shared longevity. Sometimes, the clearest reflection of your future doesn't come from your parents, but from your siblings. You share more than childhood memories. You share genes, a home environment, and the habits learned around the same dinner table. And according to a study in the American Journal of Epidemiology, that shared foundation can reveal startling insights into your own longevity. Researchers found that siblings tend to have remarkably similar lifespans, even after accounting for lifestyle differences later in life. If one sibling lives into their 90s, the chances increase that the others will too. And if one dies young, especially from chronic disease, that too may be a warning sign. Why? Because siblings often inherit the same combinations of risk genes, those affecting cholesterol levels, blood pressure, blood sugar control, even mental health. But beyond genetics, siblings also absorb the same early life exposures, nutrition, stress levels, pollution, healthcare access. In other words, your brother's heart attack at 52 may not just be a tragedy, it may be a signal. Your sister's strength at 89 may not just be luck, it may be in you too. But there's also opportunity here. If you and your siblings break generational cycles by quitting smoking, eating better, moving more, you don't just change your own path. You build a new family legacy, and that legacy goes deeper than we ever imagined. Because even if we share the same genes, it turns out we can influence how those genes behave, how they turn on or stay quiet. To understand how deeply our parents' choices, even before we were born, may have shaped us, we have to explore one final mystery: how aging gets written into our DNA itself. Let's look at epigenetics and how your parents' age, habits, and stress may still echo in your body today. Epigenetic memory, how parental aging rewrites your DNA expression. What if the way your parents aged, what they ate, how they slept, how much stress they carried, left marks not just on them, but on you? That's the science of epigenetics. Unlike changes to your DNA sequence, epigenetic changes don't rewrite the code. They decide how it's read. And what researchers are now discovering is extraordinary. Your parents' behaviors, environment, and even age at conception can influence how your genes express themselves across your entire life. In studies on both humans and animals, scientists have found that children born to older parents, especially older fathers, may inherit different patterns of DNA methylation, the tiny chemical tags that turn genes on or off. These patterns can affect everything from metabolism to immunity to brain function. And maternal stress during pregnancy? It can epigenetically prime a child's stress response system, altering how their body reacts to anxiety, fear, and trauma decades later. This means your body may still be responding to the stresses your parents lived through, even if you never saw them. It's a haunting, humbling truth, and also a hopeful one. Because unlike fixed DNA, epigenetic markers can change. With healthy choices, positive environments, and emotional healing, we can influence gene expression, sometimes reversing patterns passed down through generations. So when we ask, how much time do I have? The real question might be, what will I do with the time I've been given? Because your parents' age at death isn't your sentence. It's your starting line. And the rest is still being written. Your parents gave you more than memories. They gave you a map. Some parts are etched in your DNA. Others are written in choices they made. And still more are shaped by how you choose to live now. Yes, their age at death matters, but it's not your finish line. It's your wake-up call. Because the truth is, you are not your parents' ending. You are your own beginning. If this message spoke to you, if it made you reflect, hope, or feel a little more in control, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe for more life-changing stories backed by science. Your future deserves it. You deserve it.